Well, good afternoon. My name again is Jason Whitlock. I'm with Community Planning and Development, lead urban design for this project. I'm excited to talk to you today about things from the surface of the granite up, the things that you'll be able to experience. We're doing a lot of really thoughtful work from the surface of the granite down, but I don't think many of us are going to be experiencing many of those pipes and subsurface things day to day. But this is really that rich experience. What happens at the surface of the granite up? How do we actually have the mall become part of that public space, the public life, the things that we will be wanting to sit on, those moments of joy? We'll talk about those in a little bit. Shade, places to sit and to stand, and the role of the 16th Street Mall. I will give you some of the background, what we've learned, where we are today, and then Bill from Dig Studios will push us future forward and start to think about what the future of the mall is. So why are we here? Why is this important? 16th Street Mall is a beautiful part of our city, has a rich history, but we need so much more from that 80 feet of right of way, right? We have the possibility, the potential to invite people downtown, be one of those great streets in the world. The investigation on the value and the importance of 16th Street Mall, what is possible, it's gone back years, right? Like, I don't know how many in this focus group were ever part of the Meet in the Street events. They started like 5 summers ago, and then we did them in 4 and 3 summers ago. And we worked with RTD, rerouted the shuttle, allowed the full street closure for multiple blocks, and then worked with the Downtown Denver Partnership to really activate the space. To actually, this is actually the 16th Street Mall from Glenarm to Welton. And you can see actual, turf and sod that was put out in the space to start to transform it. We had no idea that a quinceañera was going to show up. I don't even know if they knew it, but people get drawn to vibrant spaces, to thoughtful places, and with very little sort of more organic activations, people get drawn to space. People love to see and be seen. There were other sort of activities to do. There were places to sit. There was the stores, the restaurants, food and beverage to continue to activate the space, and we saw a lot of success. We, at the same time, as everyone was having fun, we were busy counting, measuring, seeing what people were doing, really counting the number of people, how many people were walking bikes, walking dogs, the ages of people going past, and we studied how people behaved in a transformed environment and what was possible in the space, and that's led us to some of the recommendations that we're going to start looking at today. We can move forward. And we learned a lot. We learned so much that I'm only going to tell you one fact because it's just super fun, but then we learned so much. But one of the things we heard at the beginning of the project was like there are no kids downtown, right? Like, you're crazy, there's no children, there's not much opportunity for families and children in the space. And we did even some of the simplest things you can see in the upper left-hand corner, to invite families, to invite children, and people came to the space. It really is a community center. It's again a main street of Denver in the Front Range region. Places to play. We've heard so much about just good places to sit and watch, sit and talk. Places to live, right? Places to shop and to eat, to live that everyday activity. Thinking that downtown is a balance of people that are working, people that are visiting, and people that are living. And we continue to see those changes today in the space. These are really important invitations. You can go to the next slide. And these are also really important when we think about the length of the 16th Street Mall. Many of these other streets that even like we talked about, and you listed, like Larimer Square in the Pearl Streets. These are streets that are like 3 blocks, 4 blocks long, 1 block. Really. These are much shorter increments than the 1.2 mile spine that the 16th Street Mall is through the heart of downtown Denver, right? And there's all these little microcosms along the 16th Street Mall. There's DUS and these other moments. It's important for us to think about both consistency, we want elements, we want a continuity, and variety as part of the conversation. When we start to talk about consistency, I want to be just sort of upfront that there are some really important part of that legacy design that we have from famous I.M. Pei, Cobb, Lori Olin and Associates that were part of the design. The granite pavers will remain. The good tree canopy is coming in. The tree that you see actually in that picture there is the actual tree that's in Colorado, has been transplanted, is getting acclimated, I think now it's heading into its second year here, that are going to be out in the mall, and the historic replica lights. Those are really important moments of consistency that continues to bring that legacy forward. But in addition to that, we have the next slide, which is the moments of variety. We have places to sit. We have fun moments, right? We have places to just get that coffee. And then we have the pauses, right? We're going to talk about the activations, but we have the space between places you can continue to cross across the street and go to that store. The place you can cut across when you see that friend on the other side of the street and just want a spot to pull them aside and just say, hey, how are you doing and what's going on? Our first lesson that we learned with our one of our consultants called Gail Studios, who is a placemaking consultant out of Copenhagen, was make it a series of experiences. It is really long. Let's make some variety. Let's have some moments along the way. And many of you, many of the other focus groups were involved in really giving us some really detailed feedback. We asked some questions like, does it give us benefit to actually break down the length of the mall into these bite-sized chunks? And if yes, like what, where, how, who became really important. You can see a series of dots, lots of sticky notes. There's some presentations here and at the web building, but through all that and really thoughtful input from these groups, we've continued to move the conversation forward and understand more about what are those really key elements that start to draw community together and start to create place. Led us to, you can jump ahead a couple slides, to thinking and to understanding the importance of the mall is to really make these sort of really special and specific invitations to families, to college students, to workers, to locals that just want to know where the tourists that just want to know what the locals themselves are doing, people that are working in the space, people that are coming and living their life here. It's really important for us to have those special invitations to actually start to cluster moments of intensity, to make some hot spots, to make some wows along the length of the mall. And we located, through some input, located key blocks and key sets of blocks that we want to start to think about those. And it's led us to what I have the last slide, which is what we're really calling character areas. Places that when you go there, you have an affinity for the space, you understand there's something sort of unifying and special about certain zones, knowing that there's still the consistency of the pavers, the trees, the lights. But hey, I'm in proximity to the convention center or the performing arts complex. Hey, I know that, and if I just go down here, I can hit the Coors Field or DUS is down this way, or man, this is a great place to shop, right? People don't shop for shopping as much, right? People shop for the experience of shopping. That experiential design, that we can carry that out into public space. So this is where we've ended the work that we've done up to now. We can do a little bit of Q&A, but Bill will come in and talk about moving this forward, thinking this forward, moving this forward next. But any questions on what we've learned, where we are, before Bill jumps in?
Thank you, Jason. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bill Vitek. I'm with Dig Studio. We are the urban designers as a part of the PCL team, who is the main contractor, constructor, charged with actually implementing a lot of the great work and ideas and previous studies that Jason just ran through, to now making it, to the detailed construction, final designs and detailed construction documents so we get implemented. So I like to say we're kind of the last leg of the relay race here, and we're here to bring home all these great elements that have been studied and researched really for the past 10 years. So with that, part of the information that we were given as our point of departure on this last leg is this, the Public Life Playbook. And the Public Life Playbook, one of the diagrams that influenced us a lot is this transect through these ecoregions in Colorado. So this is actually the trajectory of the 16th Street Mall. So it is true the mall doesn't run east-west or north-south. It actually runs north-west to southeast. And so, but if you extended that line along the mall, you would see that it reaches up into the mountains, and the character of the mountains in the alpine forest, the aspen trees, evergreen trees, coming down through the Front Range plains, and rock formations coming through the urbanity of the city of Denver itself, and then out through the pine oak woodlands, and then onto the prairie and the grasslands beyond to the southeast and east. So this was really meant to be the development of an idea about an application of color to the public life elements, that up in the mountains it could be yellows and dark greens reflective of the aspen and the pines. Through the red rock formations, it could be more of the reds and the earth tones. Then we get all the way out to the plains where it could be more reflective of the golden sage and grasses of the prairie. We agree with that kind of approach, but we also said, and this is kind of in the thinking of breaking down the mall into these series of character zones and spaces, so it's not all one continuous kind of experience. But we agreed with that approach, but we also said, can those eco zones begin to influence the actual materiality and form and shape of the actual public life elements themselves? So we overlaid this kind of color theory of those eco zones along with the character areas, local link, Jumpstart, et cetera, and said, how do these two mesh together? Where are the important nodes and destinations? And those become the areas where we will locate the some of the more significant public life elements, the play features, the play-as-you-go features, and some of the shape features. So today we're going to talk about three primary public life elements that we're studying. I want to point out that there's really several other layers to the public life elements. We're only going to focus on shade, play, and play-as-you-go features today, but there is a whole other component of site furnishings, from benches to pots to bike racks, picnic tables, et cetera, that will be a part of the whole entourage of site pieces on the mall. And there will also be two public art pieces being funded by the 1% per art budget on a public project. There'll be a international selection, international artist selection, and one of the local Colorado's art selection. And so we're working with Jason and the rest of the city team to kind of identify and how those will interact as well. But those will be some significant moments of interaction, of joy, moments of joy, excitement on the mall as well. And then lastly, we continue or believe that the Downtown Denver Partnership, through the bid, will continue to do some of the prototyping elements that they have out there right now, and just some of the normal day-to-day activities like the piano, rolling out the piano and the chessboard and those kinds of activities. But what we want to focus on is really these three key ones today, is the shade elements. And this is a board just showing some precedent images that begin to look at some of the character of those regions or eco zones or regions in Colorado that could be influencing the design. We have a kind of a notion of a grove of cottonwood trees in the upper left to a stand of aspen trees looking up the bright blue Colorado sky, to columbine in the upper middle there, which is obviously our state flower, and then some precedent images of how those kind of natural influences might begin to inform the actual detailed design of the shade structure. So everything from a literal petal flower to a canopy of overlaying geometric patterns. It could be representing branches or leaves. There's some more geometric shapes on the far right that represent a little bit stronger architectural pattern, or kind of the hexagon one here that represents more like a beehive structure. But we looked at all these as kind of influences as to what these shade elements could become. The one last thing on the shade elements to point out is we did locate these on the mall where we had an absence of trees, either due to utility conflicts or transportation kind of turning movement conflicts. But we tend to put shade elements either where we're missing trees, or we did a detailed shade and shadow analysis. We identified where the spots are on the mall that could use more protection from the sun. And then next element is the play features. Again, looking at inspirations of aspen, of choyas, or wildlife in Colorado, the mountain lion or the diamondback snake pattern here, we said, can those be influences or shapers of the play features themselves? A couple key criteria about the play features are, we have a narrow zone within those where those play features need to fit, because we have to keep a 10-foot open, clear public sidewalk. And then we have the transitway where the buses run. So it was really important to kind of think about these play features as self-contained elements. This photo, two photos in the kind of the right center here, the one with the yellow leaves stacking up, that's actually, in the one above it with the white kind of disc, those are actually contained with a very fine mesh that is non-climbable, which will keep the play activities within inside the structures themselves. So we don't want anybody running out in front of buses or running out in front of pedestrians. So this mesh will help contain those features. They'll be very transparent from a safety point of view. And then also these structures will be lockable so that the downtown the Downtown Denver Partnership will be able to lock these features up at night and open them up in the morning, as well as get in and maintain them. They'll also have a fall safety surface at the bottom that is a resilient kind of rubberized surface that meets all the latest play standards. We're working with another Copenhagen company called Carve, who is internationally recognized as kind of premier play feature designers in development of these ideas. And so we're rolling out some more thinking and detail on those right now. But those are some key criteria as to how those will be shaped and how their evolution will move forward. Next.
How many of those moments do you expect?
Yeah, that's a good point, because we have two play features, and then the next element we get to is the play as you go. We have three kind of areas of those. It's not just three individual things, but there'll be five of these in essence along the mall. And so I don't want people to think that, the mall is long, it's 1.2 miles, and that this is going to be, like just stuck with all these things on every block. That's not the case. The continuity of the mall through the paving, the trees, and the lights, what's really most important. And we'll have continuity through the site furnishings. But these are meant to be at those special identifiable nodes, whether it's connections to convention center or other plazas, et cetera, where there's just a lot of activity. These are identified to go in those locations. And then play as you go elements. The third element here, and maybe the best way to describe what we would refer to today as a play as you go element on the mall are the red thimble spinning chairs that have been out there since one of the early meet and greets on the street about 5 years ago. That's what we mean by play as you go element. So things you can interact with, things that become art, become seating, become semi-play, become those types of situations where you could have a Instagrammable moment with your photo taken if you're visiting downtown. But they're everything from fun kind of cultural seating elements to it could be some art things that you can climb on, like the buffalo there or the snowdrift bench. Those are some of the ideas that we're thinking about, and we're going to get into those in a little bit more detail here in just a second. So next, in developing this idea, it seems like we've had, this is about the third or fourth kind of stakeholder group we've had. It seems like there's a kind of an overall favorable response to integrate this kind of notion of nature into these public life elements. We began to look at kind of three initial concepts around some of the natural characteristics of the Colorado environment. One is the river and water. The next one you'll see is flora, and then I believe fauna. And we use these kind of big ideas as drivers into how we begin to articulate, again, the forms and shapes. You can see across the top, we have shade elements on the left, play as you go features in the middle, and then the contained play features on the right-hand side. So the idea on the far left relative to shade is looking at kind of abstracting that notion of trees, whether they be cottonwoods down by the bank of a river or aspen trees, but doing them in clumps. So we have a strong kind of central post that resembles a trunk and a branching structure. Then above that, we could have a perforated metal panel were a series of panels that could be punched in a pattern of leaves or a pattern of branches and twigs that overlay one another. Next to that is an idea about a shade structure that is more of a trying to mimic the flowing nature of water, both up and down as well as side to side in terms of kind of a sinuous nature to that. I keep thinking we should be showing that in blue to represent water instead of green, but the idea is that it has some role and feel to it. And then in the middle, we have play as you go features. Again, we go on this idea of flowing and the sinuous nature of water. We have a kind of like a feeling of a prairie bench at the top, a bench in the middle that has some three-dimensional kind of form to it that is kind of inspired by how water carves out rocks through the canyons. And again, it's a place where you can sit. It's a place where you can climb, you can play, you can interact. Back to Jason's point earlier about one of the biggest findings was the need for more things for kids to do on the mall. So we think that the play as you go and the play features are big components of that. Play feature on the right-hand side is again this notion of this abstracted forest. I didn't mention on the play features, I should have, I don't think I did, was these little icons, which I know are really hard to see, these small circles, but these play features will be designed with ADA accessibility and use fully in mind. So there'll be ability to get someone disabled with a chair inside of these play features. And then there'll be a series of transfer shelves and ledges and a system inside that allows a mobilely disabled person to be able to move from one experience to the other within the enclosed play feature. The next idea in terms of, again, using the environment to shape inform the public life elements is the notion of flora. Here we're thinking that the patterns on top of the shade structures could be leaves, could be more petals. The play as you go elements could be a cross section of the different types of mushrooms that you encounter in the Colorado mountain environments. Again, these are play, these are seeding, these are just interaction moments that become these kind of features of something fun, something different. They could be also incorporate environmental education plaques and notion pieces with them as well. And then on the right-hand side is this play feature that is inspired by a beehive configuration. And again, we'll have accessibility at the bottom and then a series of transfer components from cell to cell within the structure itself. So this was the idea of using flora as an inspiration. And then lastly, our ideas about fauna, which is using the pattern of a rattlesnake, for example, within the upper elevation of the perforated forms of the canopy structures, or the pattern of a cutthroat trout, that beautiful kind of modeling you see in those, the scale pattern of that. Play as you go features could be, highlighting our state rivalry between the Colorado Buffalo and the CSU Rams in the middle here. But the idea that these elements are clustered, you can climb on them, get your picture taken on them, but there's something unique due to the mall and to Colorado. And then the bottom idea is this kind of spool of cutthroat trout that again you interact with and sit on. And then lastly, play features, two further ideas. Being a little bit more literal about the idea of fauna is a snake feature that again has multiple components within it, from ropes to slide to climbing rings, or internalized in the confines of a mountain lion or a marmot, like the upper right-hand photo shows. So that's kind of what our thinking is. So our next step is to hear from you first and foremost. Like I say, we're almost at a 60% level on these play as you go elements. We're getting lots of good feedback and input from stakeholder groups, and we want to hear that so that we can incorporate this thought and feedback into our detailed design, which will be wrapping up early next year.
All right, well, we have 1 minute left, so I'm going to run through my closing slides here. Our next meeting for this group and our next kind of round of outreach will be in the January, February timeframe next year. We're gonna have an overwhelming amount of information, I think, for folks. So we're gonna have details on all the things that you saw today. We'll have a better understanding of when you might start to see some activity in the corridor for the real deal construction that's coming. And so I think we'll have some good things to talk about. You'll get to see the full brand for what we're putting together. Things will start to look a little different for the project. But until then, you can always go to the website for more information. We'll be putting more info up after that outreach event on December 11th. And if we don't see you before then, hope you have lovely holidays. And we'll catch up with everybody in early 2022.